Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. I'd like to call to order a public hearing of May the 5th, 2021, Town of Port Royal, and have our town manager, Van Willis, just review the ordinances for us, if you would, please.
Sure. The first ordinance is ordinance 2021-13, an ordinance to authorize the town manager to convey excess real property to facilitate construction of sidewalks within the town described as Beaufort County Tax District 110, Map 10, Parcel 376. This is approximately 50 feet on 15th Street. We have a map up on the screen to give you an idea of where it's located. This does comply with the sidewalk construction policy. It is a continuation of an existing sidewalk. So despite its short length, because it is a continuation, it is in compliance. All right. Any public comment? Yes. All right, we'll go to the next one. Ordinance 2021-14, an ordinance to authorize the town manager to convey excess real property to facilitate construction of sidewalks within the town described as Beaufort County Tax District 110, Map 10, Parcel 112B. This is also 50 feet on 15th Street, also within the parameters of the sidewalk construction program, and it is, as mentioned earlier, also a continuation and adjacent to the one we just considered. All right, any questions on that one? Okay. The next one is 2021-15, an ordinance to authorize the town manager to convey excess real property to facilitate construction of the sidewalks within the town described as Beaufort County Tax District 110, Map 11, Parcels 106A, 0460, and 0461. This is 193 feet located on Old Shell Road. Due to the length of the anticipated sidewalk, it is in compliance with the sidewalk construction policy.
I got a question about that one.
Sure.
Is Old Shell, we've got some asphalt sidewalks over there?
We do. That was part of something I believe we did in partnership with the Naval Hospital a few decades ago. And obviously it's in need of replacing. And so this is kind of a kickoff point to maybe get some of that kick-started.
Okay. All right, let's go.
Yeah, that black stuff was supposed to be so you could walk easier. It's like if you walk on a sidewalk for a long period of time, it gives people trouble, but being on that black turf, it was supposedly to bounce on. It helps you.
Okay. Cool, thank you for the clarification.
All right. Any input on that one? If not, okay. 2021-16, an ordinance to authorize the town manager to convey excess real property to facilitate construction of sidewalks within the town described as Beaufort County Tax District 110, Map 11, Parcels 067B and 0453. This is 100 feet located on 8th Street. It is also in compliance with the sidewalk construction policy. And then the final is ordinance 2021-17, an ordinance to authorize the town manager to convey excess real property to facilitate construction of sidewalks within the town described as Beaufort County Tax District 110, Map 10, Parcels 0370, 0369, 0368, and 0158. This is approximately 148 feet located on 12th Street. And I believe that is the final ordinance for public input. I don't believe we've received any comment.
Any council comments?
I have none. I'd just like to see these projects continue.
Mayor DeVito, you have any comments? Okay, that's fine. I just, one comment, kind of echo what Councilman Darrell said is, you know, the repair roads and construct more sidewalks is something that we always look to do. We always look to encourage a walking community. So it's good to see us moving these things forward in these areas. If there are no other discussions, we'll adjourn our public hearing, and we'll move into our council workshop. Call to order our council workshop of May the 5th, Town of Port Royal. First order of business is a presentation, solid waste impact fee by David Wilhine.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me. My name is Dave Wilhelm. I'm the Director of Capital Projects for Beaufort County. I have a very short presentation. It's about 6 or 7 slides talking about the Solid Waste and Recycling Enterprise Fund. And basically what I like to do is just give a kind of a big picture overview, a little bit of a brief history, talk a little bit about the program, and hopefully clear up any confusion there is about the Enterprise Fund impact fee, and be happy to answer any questions at the end of it. So, Brooke, I believe you have the PowerPoint, the slides?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he does. She does. She's just got the title slide up now, so if you wanted to tell her to switch to the next one, she can.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead and switch to the next slide. I can't see that on my screen. I apologize.
There's probably a little bit of a delay if he's,
No, he can hear it live, just because he's on Zoom.
okay, good.
He just can't see.
We're on the why all of the changes.
Why all the changes? Okay, thank you. So why all the changes? Solid waste and recycling, very broad department. Thank you. I can see the slide now. It's a department that has a very large impact on everybody. Everybody in the county disposes of waste. It's a very high budget, very high cost. And basically, we're looking at, our role is to try to, as the bullet says, try to make the most out of the tax dollars and try to be good stewards of the environment. Just real briefly, everything right now, all the waste that's generated is going to an out-of-county landfill. We're looking at ways to try to manage waste more cost effectively and more sustainably. So what we're trying to do is create an enterprise fund for solid waste and recycling. And we're trying to kind of flip everything around rather than looking at waste as something that's discarded and as a cost, trying to look at waste as a resource, trying to recycle more, trying to create more value for the product. So if you go to the next slide, please. And what is an enterprise fund? What's the purpose of the enterprise fund? Enterprise funds are independent, self-sustaining funds supported primarily by user fees. And I want to point out that this is not unique to Beaufort County. We already have 2 existing enterprise funds, one for the airports, one for the stormwater utility. So this would be the 3rd enterprise fund that would be created by Beaufort County. And the main reason we want to do it for solid waste and recycling is we want to be able to identify all the costs associated with this department and to try to be able to focus solely on this department. Right now, it's part of the general fund. So the solid waste and recycling department competes with other important county functions. This enterprise fund, if it's established, would dedicate all the funds would be solely dedicated to solid waste and recycling and would also increase transparency. Next slide, please. Okay, solid waste and recycling program highlights. I think everybody's aware of the convenience centers. We now have 9, used to have 11. We closed 2 recently. We have 9 convenience centers that we manage. We pay for the tipping fees or the disposal fees of all residential solid waste. We manage the countywide recycling program. We're in charge of education, public awareness, environmental stewardship. And one thing I'm very proud of, several years ago, we created a full-time litter control team, and we now have 3 enforcement officers as part of the solid waste and recycling department. So we're hopefully combating what I feel is a very serious problem in Beaufort County is trying to control litter. Next slide, please. And this is probably the most important and most eye-opening slide. A lot of people don't realize our proposed budget for FY22 for solid waste and recycling is $10.3 million. Very large number. And of that dollar amount, It's mostly comprised of money that we can't control. We have no control over. Of that 10.3 million, 4.5 is in landfill tipping fees. So that's just strictly a volume-based fee. The amount of tons that's delivered to landfill, we pay a tipping fee for it. It gets landfill. We have no control over that. $2.5 million of that budget is for the operation of the convenience centers. 1.5 million is in personnel, and that's mostly convenience center operators, mechanics, truck drivers, and also another $1 million in recycling program. Quick side note on that, I'm hoping to reduce those costs pretty dramatically. We just received proposals on that. Currently, all of the recycling that's collected at the convenience centers goes to waste management's facility in Ridgeland. We only collect a little over 2,000 tons of material a year, and it's costing us $1 million for that program. So I'm hoping that's definitely an opportunity to do something better there, and I'm hoping we can do something pretty quickly. But as you can see, just those 4 line items comprise $9.5 million of the $10.3 million budget. So that's really something that we're taking a hard look at. Next slide. So the enterprise fund, we've identified 3 options. Option 1 is a flat fee. We retained the services of a consultant, Tischler Weiss, and they performed an analysis for us and made a recommendation. And their recommendation was to institute a flat fee countywide to all residential units, all household units. And basically, the premise is, regardless of the property value, if you have a 4-bedroom house with X number of people in it, you're generating the same amount of waste, whether it's a $100,000 house or a $1 million house. So their recommendation was to have a flat fee of $169 per household. And their recommendation was to create an enterprise fund that would be completely self-funded and completely self-sufficient. It would include allocate money for capital projects. It would include an operating reserve. It would include money to pay back the county for services. Currently, we're using county services such as HR and payroll. So this enterprise fund would pay the county back for those costs. And that was what was proposed originally to county council. After much discussion, let me backtrack real quick. That $169 per household would reflect an increase in cost. So after much discussion, county council wanted to go in a different direction. They wanted to create the enterprise fund, but use a millage-based fee structure. That way, it's something that homeowners, taxpayers are used to. Your millage is based on your property value. And as I'll show you in the next slide, County Council just voted on approving a first reading of an ordinance to create a millage-based enterprise fee fund structure, and it would have no increase to the taxes. So essentially what would happen is the millage rate right now is roughly 55 mils for the entire general fund budget. So on your tax bill, you see a line that says 55 mils for general fund. The revised bill, if this gets approved, the revised bill will show 50 mils for the general fund and 5 mils for solid waste and recycling. So the exact numbers are still being worked out, but that's the general philosophy or theory on it. The third option that we've explored, and it's something that I think we ultimately want to get to, but we're not quite ready yet, is a pay-for-use system. It's something that's very broadly used around the United States, and it's the fairest system. And generally what that is whoever's generating the waste pays for that management of that waste. So there's an incentive to try to minimize the amount of waste you're generating. There's an incentive to increase recycling. And it's fair because if family A is disposing of 10 tons a year, family B is disposing of 5 tons a year, family B gets a benefit because they're paying less on a true pay-for-use system. Not quite ready to implement that yet, but I think we're going to be getting there soon. So what this enterprise fund fee with the millage system is basically a good first step to get us moving in the right direction. Next slide. So the current status, where we are now, actually last year, on June 8th, 2020, County Council adopted an ordinance to create the enterprise fund. at that time they created the fund, they did not adopt the fee structure. They said that was to be determined, and that's where we hired the consultant and went through that exercise. So as I mentioned, Tischler Bice presented the fee study. We presented that to County Council. It actually went through 2 readings. County Council approved it at 2 readings, and then at the 3rd reading is when we changed direction and went with the millage-based fee structure. So it's just, I guess it was a week ago, Monday, County Council approved the revised first reading to establish a millage-based fee structure, and that was on April 26th. We still have to go through 2 more readings, but again, I want to emphasize that there is no increase in taxes if we go forward with this structure. Also want to mention, let's go on to the next slide, then I can kind of wrap up. So forward thinking, this is all part of basically a program to try and improve solid waste and recycling. As I said in the beginning, we're trying to find ways to reduce costs and to be more sustainable, be more environmentally friendly. So we're looking to try to find ways to maximize recycling. We're looking to find ways to develop manage solid waste in a more cost-effective manner, trying to avoid landfilling. There's a lot of other options, and we're spending a lot of time and effort trying to research those. We also want to provide a cost-effective, operationally efficient convenience center system. The decal system, which was just implemented recently, is a step in that direction. Just in the first 3 months, and we haven't had a hard line yet. We've been letting people come in, but we've been trying to slowly wean in the decal system. In the first 3 months alone, we've saved over $100,000 compared to last year. And that savings is strictly from out-of-county residents and contractors that had been using the centers illegally. And the decal now is issued free to all residents of Beaufort County, but we're not giving it to contractors and obviously out-of-county people. So just by keeping those people out of the centers, we're saving a considerable amount of money. So it is working. And ultimately, our goal is to develop a zero waste initiative, and that's a very long-term goal. So those are some kind of the big picture items. Started off discussion, and I think what led to tonight, the presentation, was talk about an impact fee. And it got a little bit muddy because there is no impact fee at this point. We are creating an enterprise fund through a millage-based system, which will have no net cost increase to the taxpayers. We are now retaining the services of Tischler Bice, the same consultant, to look at the possibility of adding solid waste and recycling to an impact fee. And the logic is, the rationale is, as developments are built, as population increases, developments, houses bring people generate more waste. So the more development, the more waste is generated, the more cost to the system. So it makes sense to have, a fair impact fee that has a solid waste and recycling component. We don't have that established yet. We don't have a recommendation from consultant. We're working through that. So I don't really have any news on an impact fee, but I just wanted to bring you up to date on where we are with the enterprise fund. So I think that is the end of my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Council, any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Frelick, Councilman Darrell Owens here. How are you?
Good.
Okay, back to the fee schedules. You talked about 3 options. Those are still under consideration, or they've been implemented?
Right now, the only option that council is considering is option 2, the millage. They discussed option 1, went through 2 readings, and at the 3rd reading, they tabled the flat fee option and are now moving the millage rate option forward. They approved that on, I can't remember the date, I think it was April 26th. They approved the first reading of creating the solid waste enterprise fee through a millage-based system.
Okay, so with adoption of that, or potential adoption of that, there wouldn't be any increase in taxes for the taxpayers. Because I was concerned about the flat rate. That's added an additional $14.10 to every household, and that may be a stretch for some people, particularly in some of the areas where folks are on fixed incomes and so forth, and they rely on these services, particularly with having 2 of the collection centers being closed. And then the third part I was concerned about, I was going to ask, what would that daily, that as needed use fee would be? Well, how much was that going to be? But I guess it's irrelevant now.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And what you brought out was exactly the concern our council had. If we were going with a flat fee, was the burden on on certain people. It would be a significant additional cost. So I think going with the millage based system is what we're going with now. The pay for use system. We're not ready to roll that out yet. It may be years before we're ready to do that. It's going to be quite a change for everybody, and we'll have to go through a very extensive public outreach education campaign, and we have to develop what a fair use fee would be. I don't know what that is yet, but it's something that we ultimately want to work toward.
Yeah, and I would understand that, particularly if they had some large household items and so forth that that they just needed to get out of their yard and so forth. But normal daily household garbage, I just don't see us charging someone to dump that or rid themselves of that.
Well, some of the things that we're looking at, for example, just some real interesting numbers. We're trying to develop a organic waste diversion program, so food waste. We're looking at ways to try to reduce the amount of waste that's going to landfill, reduce cost. We did a calculation. If everybody in Beaufort County would generate one less bag of trash a week by diverting their waste, if they could pull their food out or their food scrap, something that was compostable, it's a saving of $1.2 million a year that we would not have to pay to the landfill. So, I don't know if that's a reachable goal or achievable goal. I think we can probably get some proportion of that. So that's what we're going to be working on through some campaigns, education, trying to educate people on how to generate less waste or recycle more. And by doing that, it's going to help everybody's cost. It's going to reduce the cost of the county.
Definitely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kevin, Mary Beth?
I was just going to ask a quick question. Since implementing the decal system, have y'all seen an uptick in people dumping trash at the end of roads and empty lots? Or
Thank you very much. I had a note there and I forgot to mention it. We have, as I mentioned, a full-time litter control crew and 3 enforcement officers. And part of their role is to go around countywide and write citations for vehicles or trucks that are littering, people are littering. But also a large part of their role is to try to look for and find illegal dump sites. When they first started, they identified a lot of illegal dump sites. I have received a report since December through the end of April. The amount of citations, the amount of illegal dumping is actually decreased. So we've implemented the decal system. We've closed 2 centers, and they're seeing a decrease in the amount of litter. I don't know if that's an anomaly. I certainly hope that stays, but we have not seen that uptick. We thought it would happen. So we're really aware and had extra forces out there looking for it, but so far we have not seen any problems with illegal dumping or extra litter.
Dave, this is Van. What we are seeing is a lot of private dumpster dumping. Restaurants, apartment complexes. We have seen a pretty significant uptick in that happening, and I've got Reese with the city in here with me as well, and I think he's shaking his head. Yeah, they're seeing that also. Furniture stores, and as a matter of fact, we had one local restaurant is now having to go to 6 days per week dumpster scheduling because of what's going on, and we're trying to catch the ones that are doing that. But that is something that anecdotally, obviously, it could be tied to the convenience centers, but we're seeing it, and I'm getting a lot more complaints about messy dumpsters and pictures of people dumping in dumpsters and that sort of thing.
That's a very good point, Van. I was not aware of that, but now that you mention it, I can certainly see that happening. People that we're used to going, in your case, to the Gate Center. Now they have to drive to Shanklin or St. Helena. Don't want to drive that far. They'll just throw it into, a convenient, commercial dumpster someplace. I will gladly volunteer. Our enforcement officers, basically what they do, if they find a bag that's been dumped illegally, they go through the bag and try to find a a utility bill or something that will tie it back to the owner is, and they've been able to write citations from that. Typically what they do the first time is give a warning, but after that, if they see repeated offenses, they'll write citations and have been successful doing that. So, if you'd like some help with that, I'd be glad to volunteer.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do some camera placement and some things like that as well.
It's just like Alice's restaurant. That's how it all started at Alice's restaurant. I've got a few questions for you, if you allow me.
Sure.
This is Jerry Ashworth. You mentioned all of the debris goes out of the county. I'm assuming that's out to Hickory Hill.
That's correct.
What's the life expectancy?
Residential goes to Hickory Hill, C&D goes to Oakwood, but they're both waste management landfills out of county.
What's the life expectancy of those two facilities?
Heck of a good question. I haven't gotten a straight answer yet. I was told 5 years ago that it was about 5 to 6 years. I was told last year that it's still 5 to 6 years. I think they've put in possibility. I have not confirmed this with DHEC, but I've heard some people say that they were trying to purchase some additional property, do a landfill expansion. I really should know, but I apologize. I do not have a good answer. There is a finite life to it, and I think it's, I'll safely say less than 10 years. I think more than likely less than 5 years. If they are not able to get additional property to expand the landfill, my guess is they'll build a transfer station.
Okay. The decal system, Kevin touched base on that just a little bit. Is that seemed to be working out pretty good as far as the ease of the applicants receiving their decals? I know there was a few bumps in the road, and that's to be expected initially, but everything seems to be going well there as far as folks receiving their decals.
Yeah, I think, for the large part, yes. 95, 96% of the people receive their decals with no problem. There have been some glitches. It's a little bit surprising south of the Broad, which is the population center of Beaufort County, Hilton Head Island. We only have one convenience center. In all of unincorporated Bluffton, town of Bluffton, we only have one convenience center, and that's the most heavily populated areas. We're having no problems at the sites. There's no problems with decals. North of the Broad, in particular, St. Helena area and a little bit in the Dale Sheldon area, there's a lot of air properties where there's multiple residents on a single parcel, and there's only one tax parcel ID number with that, and people are wanting 8 different decals for the same ID, and we're working through a lot of issues with that. But it's as you said, there are glitches to be expected. Overall, we're very pleased with the impact of the decal system. I'm very pleased that it's not costing Beaufort County homeowners any additional cost. It's free, but again, what we're trying to do is limit the abuse or misuse of the centers, and it seems to be serving its purpose.
Very good. And you said the $100,000 that's year to date. That's January until. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's just a couple of months of data, 2.5 months of data compared, year over year, comparing last year's cost, and it's strictly, the cost is to us is hauling and the tonnage to the landfill. We still have the same operating costs with our personnel there, so it's just a strict reduction in volume over the first 2.5 months that we've seen from last year. Well, that's pretty impressive there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
My final question is: will the enterprise fund continue to pay all tipping fees?
Until directed otherwise, yes. Yeah. At this point, we're not looking to change that. What we're looking to do is hopefully find alternative ways to manage the waste. But I don't think at this point we are not considering, changing that method at all.
Okay.
Hey, can you hear me? Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead,
Sure.
Mayor.
Hey, David, just Joe DeVito. A question on that savings that we've seen. Have you checked with the landfill, and are they seeing an increase in direct payments or direct from commercials? Can we correlate that to that's what was happening? Have we tried to do that yet?
Heck of a good question. I know our operations people have. I do not have that number. I will try to get that. They were going to try to do first quarter analysis, which we should have by now, but I have not seen that. So yeah, there should be in theory, whatever we're reducing on this end, they should see an increase in direct payments, and I will check that and get back to you, Joe.
Yeah, because I think that's where we can see if it's not, then one, there's illegal dumping going on.
Doing someplace, yeah.
Or it's happening as described earlier, which are people using other commercials' existing dumpsters in that aspect, and just it'd be interesting to see, because I have gotten those same complaints. I think all of us have, from business owners we own, that my dumpster's getting filled up, there's stuff in there,
Yeah.
and some businesses who have C&D dumpsters are now getting household garbage in it, and then they get rejected from when they go to dump C&D, and they got to move it over to the other one.
Yep, it's a good point. Good point.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions, Mayor, Council? Any questions from the public? No? Okay. Well, David, we thank you and we appreciate your presentation. And come back anytime to Port Royal. We want to hear more, but we certainly do appreciate you presenting to us tonight.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. And Joe, we'll get back to you. It's a very good question. I'll get back to you when I have the answer. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Next up is the interview for the board positions. I believe we've got one for the DRB. Is that right? And it's Kit Bruce. Is she online?
I'm here.
Okay. Good evening, Kit. Happy to have
Good
you.
evening.
We're going to give you the opportunity to kind of introduce yourself, gather your thoughts, tell us a little bit about you, brag on yourself a little bit, tell us what you're currently doing and what you want to do and why you want to do it, and just introduce yourself to council for those that don't know you, and just introduce yourself to the folks that are here virtually as well, please.
Okay. I'm Kit Bruce. I live on 9th Street, 906 9th. I've lived here for almost 20 years. We renovated the 906 and then bought the house next door and renovated that also, combined those properties. I've been serving on the Historic Preservation Committee. I'm, I think, on my third term now, and I've enjoyed it, but I'd like to continue to serve, but I want to move to the Design Review Board. We've built a house and 2 brick and mortar businesses from the ground up, and we've done several renovations, also in Charleston, and I feel like I have a little bit of grasp on that, and I just love the town. We're full-time residents here, and I'd like to continue serving.
Good. Well, thank you. Council, do you have any questions for Kit while we've got her?
No question, but we appreciate your interest and your willingness to serve the community.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Just overall, everything you do for the town is much needed.
So, Van, if she's on she just got reappointed, third term Historic Preservation, is that right? Roughly? So she would have to step down from that to go to this?
Correct.
Correct, okay.
Maybe a vacancy.
And you're aware of that, right, Kit?
Yes, I am.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, well, we thank you. We're not voting on anything tonight, but we just wanted to get to meet you a little bit. Mayor DeVito, do you have any questions?
No, I do not. Thanks. Like everybody said, Kit, thanks for being willing to serve.
Cool.
Thank you.
And Kit, you do a real good job with the farmers market too. You didn't fail to mention that, but you do a great job with the farmers market. It's one of the big successes
you.
in our town.
Thank you.
So, well, thank you for being here, and we'll take this up next week. Have a good evening.
All right.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
All right, moving on our agenda. Next up is council briefing. And
All right.
we'll allow Mr. Willis to give us a council briefing, if you would, please.
Sure, let's start with stormwater, primarily Cypress wetlands. We did have our first treatment of invasives and some of the duckweed at the wetlands. The intent we wanted to get rid of some of the duckweed. The duckweed does serve some purpose, but we did want to still have that open water. And by eradicating some of it, with the wind pushes it around, so you will see that open water. As I mentioned last month, we do have the water structure permitted, but we don't want to do the install while the birds are hatching. Yes, sir?
But duckweed is a sign of a healthy pond.
Correct.
And it fixes nitrogen and helps with the whole O2, CO2. I know a lot of people look at it and think it's just stagnant water and all that stuff, but it's a sign of a healthy pond. And actually creates shade in there too, kind of keeps the water temperature down a little bit as well.
Right.
So-
And like I said, and Chris Marsh was pretty emphatic about that we do need, like you mentioned, and we just wanted to keep a little bit of open water so it could push it around a bit.
Right,
But, yeah.
gotcha.
The next area of treatment will be the kind of the primary island. We did do some replanting, so that's the next one. But obviously with bird hatching, we want to be careful and don't want to discourage them in any way at all. Next is there's a couple of little things to discuss about property swaps. I just wanted to bring y'all up to speed on those. Don't necessarily need to talk about those just at this point. Moving along to the CDBGs, the two are the Paris Avenue Streetscape and the Royal Palms Gravity Sewer. The proposal for the streetscape is just about finished. One thing lacking is the irrigation proposal. Once we get that, it'll be submitted for environmental review to Jessica with LOCOG. We have not received the environmental clearance just yet on that, looking at about a month, and we expect completion by December 2022. It's going to take some time.
When are you looking at kicking off the sewer project?
That's next, and they're hoping to have construction completed by June. Let's see what we got here. We have completed the figure and letter for the environmental review and submitted for consideration. We also haven't received the environmental clearance yet on that one. We expect that in about a month. We have approved the proposal for the survey work, so that's going to begin, as well as the CAD work as well. We're looking for construction completion on that one by June of 2022. And so once we start construction, that is going to it'll take a good 6 to 8 months, but we got to get through all of these regulatory hurdles that are required of community development block grants prior to getting started. So we're pushing those along. Spanish Moss Trail, I just want to mention, obviously, y'all are going to be giving consideration to a resolution next month with your input. So what you see might be the most appropriate location. Gray Ghost, I know y'all wanted to have them give you an update, so we'll hopefully have them here next week to discuss the status of the port redevelopment. As far as the next item is the shrimp facility. We're pursuing funding basically on a number of fronts at this time, both at the state and federal level. Obviously we've got wind of some Senate earmarks that were listed in the Post and Courier. Mayor DeVito reached out to Senator Campson, and Mayor, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, but I think Senator Campson was pretty responsive to you and is working on that.
Yeah, Senator Campson and Senator Erickson both have been responsive to us. We're hopeful that we'll be able to have some definitive answers over the next 30 to 60 days on some funding coming to Port Royal for the shrimp dock.
Perfect. And then just running parallel to that, working with Jared Frelix at Beaufort County and their staff, as well as the other municipal staffs, we've been pulling together project lists that are looking at several federal funding sources, and we did submit a couple of things. One is $3.7 million for dock reconstruction and the construction of the multipurpose building that would house shrimp processing. So we made that request, and we've submitted the spine road as well. I sent some cut sheets and some engineered drawings today for the spine road, and had already submitted the conceptual plans for the multi-use building, and I submitted the OCRM approved permit for what we call the backwards F as part of the overall marina permit for the Port of Port Royal. So those things are happening. Y'all had asked for a copy of the inventory of items at the shrimp dock. I put included in your file was just a list of those shrimp processing related items. And then also I wanted y'all to see kind of what we're studying with the American Recovery Act and the number of potential uses of those funds and why we're kind of where we are. You know, as far as the shrimp facility goes, I know that we're going to talk about this later. And I think if, you know, we're able to address what are some pretty significant costs, it's something we need to think about. If you have any questions on that, I'll move on to the next one. Baynard Cove, still nothing going on at the property. I think there's still issues being resolved between the neighbors and Baynard Cove. Traffic and road projects, speed bumps have been ordered. I know that we were looking at one on West Paris Avenue. So once that gets in, we'll get that installed. And then we've had some requests for different locations, and so we're going to take a look at those. I want to get an inventory of speed bumps in place, so those are things that we can address. I know we had talked about the 15-mile-per-hour speed limit signs on Sandsbury Road. Those have been installed. We're looking to get that swept and restripe the bike lane. Another thing that's been going on is an update of our road list. Mayor, there were a couple roads that you thought we needed to add to the top of that list. Correct me if I'm wrong. For submittal, we did an updated list on conditions as well as associated costs, but I think we were missing a few, if that's correct. I'll go back and check my notes, but I know we wanted to add them.
Correct.
And we're still in the holding pattern on Waddell Road crossing. I know that we're going to maybe engage the SCDOT on our concerns. We've expended a fair amount of money on this, and this will probably be kind of rolled up with some other projects we'd like the DOT to consider. I did ask for an update on the Naval Hospital sidewalk. This is kind of a monthly thing with me now. We are very close to resolving the survey issues again. There's one loan, apparently now, as of today, there's one little left discrepancy that they're attempting to address. So hopefully we'll get that issue resolved and get this 2016 project put to bed in 2021, maybe, probably 2022. Porter's Chapel, the USCB folks are hopefully wrapping up their coursework, and we'll be working with them to finalize the interior displays. Relationship with the National Park Service is working out very well. I stopped in a few weeks ago to talk to the ranger at the farmers market. He's very pleased with the interface that he's had with the people that come to the market and the trips that have been generated. The county did approve in the final reading the funding that we had requested for ATAX money for the work done at Porter's Chapel. We should be receiving a formal letter of approval that will lay out the things that we need to submit, and we certainly can, and we have all of that documented. Local option sales tax, it was all doom and gloom last month, but that seems to be back on track in terms of at least it getting on the ballot for consideration. Mayor, do you know anything else regarding the effort maybe to educate the public, if there are any organizations that are going to be taking that on? I just wasn't sure.
No, there's been no update that's come out. We do have a mayor's kind of meeting coming up, and hopefully we'll hear something of that, but maybe you need to check with the rest of the administrators as well.
Perfect. All right. So next item is Smilex and Ron Road. There was that request that I included about that section at the end of Ron. We reached out to 303. I think we're okay with it as long as we can ensure egress, ingress for the adjacent property owners and ensure that utilities will have the ability to use that pathway when necessary.
Indefinitely. There's not a time limit on that. It's not like 3 years, 5 years, whatever. It's like for the life of that road or whatever.
Exactly. And Linda and I did meet with 303 today. I just got to discuss what's going on that side of the road for a number of properties, and I think they're going to be pulling something together and submitting something, including the parcel that is adjacent to the rail corridor. So we're pretty excited about some activity on that side of the road. That's a good thing. Employment, y'all met Mike this evening. He's the new inspector. I have made an offer and it has been accepted for Linda's replacement. We're working on a transition date when he would start. But most of the details are knocked out, and we'll hopefully make an introduction of that new employee at the June meeting. So we're pretty excited about that. And it took a little longer than we anticipated and was a lot harder than we thought it would be. Short-term rental software, I have included in your folders that PowerPoint presentation from one of the providers to give you an idea of what we could expect should we choose to engage a software company. I think the city's been pretty successful so far in identifying units that may have not been properly licensed. And there's an issue that we're going to discuss next week involving short-term rentals, basically from different parts of the state, and issues that they're encountering, not only from a reporting issue, from a business license perspective as well. As was noted in some of the disbursements we've received from the state, where they identified 35 to 40 units in the town, knowing full well that we have 60 plus. One of the things that we did find in our ordinance was that our ordinance required payment locally of the local accommodation tax. A number of the units have chose to use the portal. We're putting together a letter that will be sent to all of those licensed units, making them aware of a couple of things. One, that they will be required to pay it locally now. And two, that if council chooses to pass the unique identifier ordinance, will be included in that letter. So that letter will be issued depending upon whatever decision y'all make. But they will be getting notified that it has to be paid locally. There have been ongoing discussions about that issue. I'm sure y'all received emails about this. And some of the emails that I've received back from the state indicate that they do not collect the local. And so a lot of the issues that y'all were hearing about may have not actually happened. And I'll forward you those emails so you can take a look at them. But we spent a few $1,000s in legal fees since then. Street music, Booker is working on the August series, and I will keep you posted on that. And then the last item I had was something we discussed during the solid waste presentation, which is the dumpsters. We're seeing a significant uptick in the stuff that's happening around dumpsters, illegal dumping. I feel bad for Fish Camp. They've been catching a lot of grief over their dumpsters, but they're picking up 6 times a week now, and we're seeing a lot of outside debris surrounding those dumpsters. I met with them earlier this week to talk about the building of an enclosure to hopefully stop a lot of that. But what will more than likely happen is people just pile bags outside the enclosure. And that's what we're seeing in different places, different apartment complexes. And as a matter of fact, we've got one apartment complex that wants to get rid of their dumpsters completely and go to roll carts.
What's the estimated cost, that camera that we put down at Sands Beach? What's that cost to run, equipment, install?
Wasn't that like $8,000?
That one's expensive, but we can go another option.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, absolutely.
We definitely have sort of things like deer cameras.
Gotcha.
We can put out there, and I got a note over here to get with Kangaroo on that. Kangaroo also, he does what the county is pretty much starting to do. If he sees bags outside the dumpsters, he will go through those bags.
Yeah.
And he'll look for receipts, anything that you paid a bill with or something. And he's been good about doing that. I'm gonna get with him again probably tomorrow, and we're gonna try to address it a little bit more. But we will get some cameras out. I've made a note of that already.
Yo, that's good. It's like that. Yeah, I got a couple friends with deer cameras if you need.
Yeah. They've been pretty helpful.
Yeah.
Sometimes people find them and.
It's a good alternative. Yeah. Thank you.
That's all I got in my briefing, but I'll answer any questions.
Council, any questions?
No question.
Mayor DeVito, any questions?
None for me at this time.
Okay.
No.
All right. Moving on, review of agenda for the May 12th, our council meeting next week. A lot of this we've covered.
Yep.
Van, is there anything you want to touch base on this?
Yeah, just a few of these. Obviously, we will have the emergency reading authorizing the continuation of electronic meetings. I think where we stand right now is y'all may have one more month of electronic.
This should be the final.
This could conceivably be the final. So take that under consideration. You could just choose not to act on that. I know kind of associated with that, we're looking at an ordinance to, allow participation in unique situations, although we can't really put parameters on that. according to Charlie, so that's something to think about as well. But as far as where we are on second readings, you heard all of the ordinances, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17 are all related to sidewalks. So we're pretty excited about that. Hopefully we get some of these actually constructed. But let's go to first readings. An ordinance amending the zoning code to include section 3.370 coastal resiliency overlay. I think y'all discussed, I wasn't at last month's meeting, but these came up and we were going to have them back on the agenda for this month for consideration. I'm not sure if there have been any discussions.
Did they meet with the
group.
county? They were supposed to meet with the county the first of the month, is my understanding. That's why we put it off.
Right. I do know, I'm not sure where Bill indicated to me, I think y'all did pass the Phil ordinance, but.
We adjusted the boilerplate state ordinance for flood, has another section in there that addressed the specific fill requirement in the city that's a little bit different than what was passed or proposed in the county.
Right.
So it's restrictive, but it didn't preclude all fill and development unilaterally, like the county potentially does, depending on the height of the particular parcel.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, I think that would be good for these two ordinances, just to have some kind of, can we get a presentation about how these came about, who discussed them, I mean, the history behind them, what they're intended to do?
I think it was, a lot of it originally with the Sea Island Coalition. And the coastal resiliency has more to do with a declaration, similar to if you're in the ACUs, that prior to purchasing a piece of property that is disclosed. The second is fill, and it has to do with, disallowing anything more than, I believe it's 3 feet. Anywhere.
Any elevation.
Right. And, and I polled the other managers. I hadn't heard back from the county, but from what I understand, they are in the middle of that. Nobody has passed it in final reading. From Bill, we passed the fill ordinance, but not resiliency. Bluffton, they're just right now contemplating the new stormwater BMP ordinance, but haven't done anything on the others. And from Orlando at Hilton Head, they're not right now considering either one of those.
There was a lot of discussion on Hilton Head, and they figured out what parcels may be affected by it, and there was a lot of discussion.
Right. And I'll be honest with you, I think Linda has done a little bit of an analysis of what the impact of that would be. It's not as much as we anticipated, and I can probably have her do a map that will give you an idea.
Yeah.
I think it's worth a discussion. These are things that were advocated by the coalition, I believe, with probably the involvement of the Coastal Conservation League. And it was triggered by this, I think the task force that was looking at concerns related to sea level rise. And I think, obviously a lot of the fill discussion was driven by probably the development of Walmart and the amount of fill that was created there. Like I said, when Linda did the initial assessment of what the impact that would be, it wasn't as significant as we may have thought. But we're happy to put together something to show you where it could be potentially a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of all clear, though, that when Bill says we passed the fill ordinance, we passed a portion of it, but
Yeah.
it's not verbatim what the county proposed.
Gotcha.
So that's good.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I mean, if she could, answer some questions.
Right.
Because I believe it was worked on for quite a while.
Yeah, it was.
So it'd be nice just to get that history and, just kind of, so we know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, we can definitely do that, and we'll get that before next week. All right. And then 12, obviously, is the fill ordinance. And 2021-18, an ordinance amending Chapter 12, licenses and business regulations. Article 5, short-term rentals, Section 12-64. This has to do with the unique identifier that we were discussing. This would, hopefully allow us to better track the units that are in town. The unique identifier would be required to be used in any sort of advertising for those units across any platform so that we could identify it and figure out if they're paying appropriate fees. There's nothing else included in the ordinance that would to cover anything else. All right, the next one is 19, and this is another sidewalk ordinance, and this is approximately 80 feet located on 14th Street. I believe y'all have a map probably in your packets that gives you a description, and this is first reading only. We'll hold a public hearing on that. The next is ordinance 21-20, an ordinance amending Chapter 19, Traffic and Motor Vehicles, Article 2, Stopping, Standing, and Parking, Section 19-31, control of parking in public parking areas or private parking areas under the jurisdiction of the Police Department of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Port Royal, South Carolina. This has to do with weight and time limit on town right-of-ways. Obviously, there have been some concerns about vehicles parking in town right-of-ways that may be damaging adjacent right-of-ways. And so at the request of some citizens, we figured we'd bring it up to council and let y'all decide whether y'all wanted to pursue any sort of limitations on large vehicles parking in town right-of-ways. There was some concern about overnight parking. I think that'd be very hard to regulate. And so that's why staff included the 3-hour time limit. And right now, I included in your packets a list of vehicles and gross vehicle weights, so you get an understanding of what some of those things are and how much they weigh. And that is why I believe it is at 7,500 pounds in this, this draft of the first ordinance. Obviously, it's first reading. Public hearing would be necessary prior to second reading. Any discussion?
No.
All right.
Wow.
All right, the next is 2121. This has to do with allowing y'all to have the option of participating in council meetings electronically. I think that we've figured out that, it's not as, well, other than today, it's typically not as onerous as we had hoped, but we're working through some of the mechanics. Thank you, Sean, for everything in this room right now, and Tony.
And Tony.
When we initially discussed this, we were concerned about, how it might be abused, that, we had hoped that we could require attendance, for X number of meetings, or, require that, it'd be something that would dictate that you couldn't be here. But I think we heard from Charlie that if you provide it as an option, I mean, it's an option. So that's something y'all need to think about. All right.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
The way I read this ordinance, and I know, Kevin, you had some concern about this. This will not allow boards and commissions. Boards and commissions will be in public. This is strictly for council. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
But would we allow boards and commissions to change their bylaws to allow that if they wanted to vote on it, or?
It's an expense to the town that we don't need to incur.
It's actually stated.
It's an expense to the town we don't need to incur.
I think that would be something we would have to say would be permissible, same as we had to do that for them to do the Zoom, the online meetings before. It's something we need to talk about.
Gotcha. Yeah, we can just figure that out, just so we're not giving ourselves an exception that is not extended.
Circumstances that they volunteer.
All right. And then the next ordinance is 2122, in order to determine the budget of fiscal year 2122. Because we have to have second and final reading in June, we'll need to do first reading at the next meeting. Typically, we've done that in title only because we're still working through departmental budgets. I do feel comfortable that by next Wednesday, we'll have a pretty good understanding of where the budget will be going, but this will be in title only at that meeting. All right.
Okay.
Resolutions, Resolution 4-2021, a resolution encouraging the use of face coverings. Obviously, the previously mandated mask mandate has expired, and I believe it's expired in just about every municipality in the county. And so here we are with a potential resolution that would encourage continued face covering. So that's up to y'all to determine whether you want to pursue that or not. And I'll staff, in terms of, you know, what we do, opening, public, you know, we're trying to follow along the path that you guys determine and how you move it forward. I know that a lot of the other buildings are back open to the public. The reality is that, you know, we're still engaging the public. We're trying to work out internally how we handle mask versus no mask, vaccination versus not vaccination in the office. So that's something we'll be addressing here shortly. But, you know, this is a resolution strictly whether you want to encourage people to wear a mask or not.
Do we put any, is it just a resolution, just?
Yeah, you're saying, hey, man, you should wear a mask, or, you know.
Okay.
Well, I think it's important.
Yep.
Oh,
We still have the COVID virus out there. I mean, at least since we did drop it, we need to at least encourage people to wear it to protect us and to protect themselves.
I agree.
And the next is Resolution 5-2021, a resolution supporting the crossing of the Spanish Moss Trail on Rebo Road. You all have a draft of that resolution. I think this is just an articulation of the position that y'all adopted about where you would like to see the crossing encouraged or built, as well as what you'd like to see accompanied with that crossing if and when it does happen. Anybody got anything they want to add to that?
Nah,
No, sir.
Okay.
I think we're pretty solid there.
All right. Council action, you do have one appointment to the Design Review Board, and y'all have interviewed a candidate. And the second is just kind of formally adopting a position relative to shrimp processing at the 11th Street docks. Obviously, this has been an ongoing discussion for a number of years. You know, there's two separate issues here. One is boats tying up at the dock, and the second is processing. We all know financially the impact of processing, and I think right now, the way we're positioned, you know, until we can build a viable dock and a truly functioning shrimp processing facility that could be licensed out to a third party, I think we need to make a policy decision on processing until that happens. And so we'll be looking to have a formal discussion and a position clarified through a motion at the meeting next week. And by this being on the agenda, you can do that.
Well, and I'll just say, discussion-wise, I think you summed it up really well. I look at it like, we got two different things. We got the docks and then the shrimp processing. I was reviewing when we got our execs. I mean, one of our must-dos is maintain and expand the shrimp docks. I mean, everybody wants to do that. So just looking at those two entities, and if one of those is a continuous loss leader, I mean, a financial loss, that money could potentially get rid of some derelict boats. That money could repair the dock that needs repair. That could go into other things. And so I think it's important in the conversation that it's just talk about them as you just said. We got two things going on down there. We got a shrimp dock that we want to maintain, as our must-do say we want to maintain and expand, and then we've got shrimp processing going on, which this council has indicated that for a while that it'd be nice to not be in the business of shrimp processing. So
I agree.
All right, if there's nothing on that one, I'll just go to important information and dates. Tuesday, May 11th at 6:30 p.m. is Parks and Recreation. Next Wednesday, the 12th at 6:30 p.m. is a regular council meeting. And a budget workshop, which we will add to the agenda.
and maybe executive session.
An executive session, which we will add. And on the 18th of May at 4:30 is Redevelopment Commission. That's all I got.
That's all you got?
That's all I got.
Council comments?
None.
Kevin?
No, I'll just say again, I don't know if it's again, but the budget process, this is my second time going through it, and how much work goes into it, you'll do a really good job, and when I hear you saying things, it's been a tough year, and we've had to be creative, and how we do still come through, like I said, this is my second time going through the process, and it's impressive, the work y'all put in and to make it happen, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor DeVito, any comments, sir?
No, nothing to add at this time, just thanks everybody for their support.
One thing I'll say is I am happy that we are back in council chambers and look forward to continuing to move it forward and open it up to the public. I know we've got a plan in place, and this is the first step of it, and we're sure happy to be here tonight. That's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Next
Sorry I
up,
can't be with you.
how about public comments, Ms. Brooke? Do we have anything?
Yes, sir.
I saw one thing come up. Do you see something from John Hazel
On ordinance.
about decals? He's asking, do new homes get decals? I would think all homes.
I think they can apply just like anybody.
Right.
On the county website, you can apply.
Just go to the county website and
Yeah.
apply. That's how I did mine, so I think,
But something to think about once we do go back full live is, I'm sure there are some people that do like that we televise the meetings.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we'll need to think about that.
I agree.
I think y'all had started televising even before COVID, correct?
Yeah, and
A
it
lot
will be
of-
continuing, and we're working through,
Mhm.
so the one thing we're not doing anymore is reading the comments from Facebook into the meetings. We're asking people that want to participate virtually and make comment to join the Zoom meeting and make an in-person comment like you normally would if you were in the dais.
Sean, do you
That's
see
where we're headed.
any challenges with that, or have we been through about as challenging as we can get?
Yeah, kind of what we're doing now. Me
This is
sharing this,
crazy.
I've got Mr. Mayor DeVito here, so when he speaks, I pull him up, and it looks like he's right there as well. So it works well, and we can monitor comments as well. So we just need to be set up probably in the corner once we get the full staff,
Yeah.
and then just do it this way. So I think we can overcome it.
Sounds good.
That's
Anything
amazing.
from our police or our fire while they're here?
Noise,
He's
noise,
about to
noise,
step
noise ordinance.
Someone dropped the bass on you.
Noise
Yeah.
ordinance.
Mayor Pro Tem. Honestly, the fire department's been busy. I would encourage our citizens to continue to drive safely. We've had some significant vehicle accidents over the last couple of weeks. Thankfully, nobody is perished, but a couple of, one car flipped 6 times
Wow.
on a Savannah highway accident. So, wearing your seatbelts and having properly maintained cars and being attentive is probably the biggest thing you can do. Secondarily, checking on your family, your friends. Quite frankly, heroin use in our community is a serious issue, and we've had some significant issues with that this last couple of weeks. It comes and goes. The reality of it is a bad batch will come through, it'll have fentanyl or something other cut in it, and it creates a lot of medical issues for the users. And we need to be checking in on people that we're concerned about to make sure that they're getting help and moving forward in a positive direction, because that substance abuse is a serious issue.
Wow. I had no idea.
Mhm.
Police?
So far, so good. I just wait on the budget to come.
Well, we appreciate all
Now,
that.
I will say that Wilson has been very active. I mean, for those of us that are driving every day, we see what the aggressiveness and what's going on. It's mind-boggling. We've had, I saw in the paper today, we've had, not in Port Royal, but 4 deaths.
Yes,
Countywide, it's been really bad.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
We've been fortunate.
yes.
And, that's scary. And,
Similar situation.
I know Wilson's staying active, which is good.
Car went over there.
Sir, you talked about important dates and information. We've opened it up to the public. We've opened it up to council. I don't have anything else on the agenda, so I say we adjourn. See you next week.
All right.
Sir.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.